If you've been editing your photographs to give them more of a cinematic look, but you haven't quite been able to achieve this, then the problem might be with the way that you're actually capturing the photograph. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you what could be the missing piece for the look that you're after. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today's video is going to be all about how we can make our photographs a little bit more cinematic. And when we say cinematic, really filmic is probably a better word to use, because what we're actually trying to do is simulate the look of film. And that can actually be a little bit difficult to do. I did put a video together a while back that I'll link somewhere in here that shows you how you can try and do this in your edit. But the problem that you're facing is that when you are capturing a photograph with a digital camera, then it is a digital file. It's essentially very different to the way that we used to capture photographs back in the film days. And so what you have is you're starting off with two different mediums. First, you had a piece of film that we used to scan, and now what you have is you actually have a file, and you're trying to make that file look a little bit degraded, if you like, because the quality of digital cameras is much higher. It's much more precise. It's much more perfect than the stuff that we used to get with film. And so when you're trying to edit the file, essentially what you have is some of those imperfections. They're not there. So the imperfections are missing. So it's about introducing some of those imperfections a lot of the time in order to get the same sort of look. And that can be, in some cases, it can be an easy thing to do, but there are some characteristics of film that you just cannot, it's very difficult to simulate. And one of the things that filmmakers have been using, one of the techniques that they've been using for a really long time, is using a very specific filter. And that is the black mist filter, like the one that I've got over here. If you think about filters, we use filters in photography all the time. And you know, filters have been used in filmmaking, and they've sort of crossed into photography for most of them. So if you think about a polarizer, for example, polarizer filters are very common in photography. If you think of neutral density filters, graduated neutral density filters, all of those, they're very common in photography, they're very common in filmmaking. But this one here has not really made it down to photography as much, and it's something that most people have not heard of. Now, this one here is by a company called Tiffen. It is the Black Pro Mist or Pro Mist Black. I'm not quite sure. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to know more about this one. And what these are, they look essentially like clear filters, but they're not. They've got these tiny little specks on the glass itself. You can't see them, they're almost microscopic. But what it does is that it gives you a bit of a hazy effect. It reduces the contrast of your photographs, and it does it in a very different way. So you can go into Lightroom, for example, and you can reduce the contrast using the contrast slider, but you're not going to get the same effect. The way that the Black Pro Mist filter works is that in the dark parts of the photograph, it tends to lose a little bit of contrast. It tends to look, it loses a little bit of the black. And then at the same time, in the bright areas of the photograph, it will give you this sort of blooming effect. It's like a glowing effect that it almost blurs up the bright parts of a photograph. Now, these come in different strengths. This one here is the 1/8, but you can get a 1/4 and 1/2, and each one of those is just double the intensity of the other ones. 1/2 can be quite strong, and it's really more of a specialty product. Most people tend to use something like a 1/8 or a 1/4. For most of my photographs, I pick the 1/8. And where you're really going to notice this is where I notice it is around nighttime photography, where you have really high contrasting scenarios. So you have things like really bright lights, like street lights, for example, but it's nighttime. And so that contrast there allows you to really tell the difference between what the filter is actually doing in the dark areas and in the bright areas. So I've got a few photographs here that I've been showing you, and what I'll show you now is I'll show you the same photograph, but I will have the one version of the photograph with no filter and then the other one with the filter. And as you can see, I'll just put them side by side in here. You're going to see that there is a very, very slight effect, but it's still it's very noticeable around the areas of the bright areas, so around the light, for example. And this works really well with things like neon lights, and like I said before, just bright lights around nighttime. So essentially what you're looking for is a lot of contrast. It can also look really nice in a room as well. Sometimes you've seen scenarios where you will see a very sort of foggy sort of room. Sometimes they will introduce fog with fog machines in a room and just sort of whiff it around to make it, give that sort of hazy sort of look. This is something that you can also do with this as well, because it is going to create a little bit of a foggy sort of effect, like a hazy sort of effect over the top of the scene as well. So now it's something that you need to be aware of, is that obviously when you're using filters in front of your lens, then all this stuff is going to be baked into the actual file itself. So even if you're shooting RAW, this is not something that you can remove later on. You can minimize it, but you can't remove it. It's already in the file itself. So that's something to keep in mind. But at the same time, I will also say that this is not something that can be easily simulated in an artificial format using something like Photoshop or Lightroom. The way that the filter behaves, although it can be done to a certain degree using Photoshop, it's not something that's really that practical. So you're much better off using something like this. So now one thing that I will say as well, if you are going to be looking at picking one of these up, make sure that you get one. My recommendation would be get the one that is going to fit the largest diameter lens that you have. So in my case, for example, all my lenses are 77 millimeters, or not all of them, but a few. My largest lenses are 77 millimeters in diameter. So that is the one that you would want to buy. You want to buy the largest one. And then in order to use the filter on some of your smaller lenses, you would use some step down rings. I use the Neewer ones, and I'll put a link in the description if you're looking, if you're interested in getting some of those. But that's what I wanted to share with you today. Like I said, this is something that's not really well known in the photography field. A lot of people have never heard of these filters, in fact, but it's something that can really make a difference and really help you to make your photographs look different so that they stand out amongst everyone else's photographs. So, yes, that is basically it. Now there are different manufacturers that make these ones. This is the original one. Tiffen, I think, it came out with the one that is the most widely used one anyway. And then you've got other ones that behave very differently. They behave very similar, but they still have their characteristics about it that make them a little bit different. So it's a matter of just going in there and picking the ones that you like. But there is a reason why this one here is the most commonly used one, and that is because the image and the effect that you get with one of these is just a beautiful, beautiful effect. So that's everything that I've got for you today. If you do have any questions, make sure that you leave them in the comment section below. That's the best place to get in touch with me. Otherwise, of course, you can reach me through any of the usual social media platforms, and you're going to find all the links in the description. If you did like this video, please don't forget to give the video a like. It really makes a difference to me and to the channel. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, consider doing so, because I make videos like this all the time to help you with your photography. And if you don't want to miss out on any of those, click the subscribe button and the notification bell, and you know what to do. So anyway, that's everything that I've got for you today. I want to thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.